every nation is racing to use AI to build a future that is imbued with their own values. And I think we can all agree that we do not want to live in a future that is defined by technology shaped by authoritarian regimes. And that's why the president is very clear that American leadership in the world today requires American leadership in artificial intelligence.
Well, welcome back. I'm Kat Zakreski, National Tech Policy Reporter here at The Post. And my guest today is Arati Prabhakar, the Director of the Office of Science and Technology Policy at the White House. Thank you so much for joining us today.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me, Kat.
Well, I want to dig right in because we had some news yesterday. My colleagues and I reported that the White House is preparing to release its long-awaited AI executive order on Monday, and that this will be one of the administration's most significant efforts to address AI safety and competition. What does the White House hope to accomplish with this executive order?
Well, let's step back and talk about why we're focused on AI at the White House. The president has been clear from the beginning that this is one of the most consequential technologies of our times. You've heard President Biden talk about the fact that we're at an inflection point in history, and he sees AI as part of that. And just as that clip was showing, if the decisions we make about AI right now are going to shape the future for many, many decades ahead. That's why it's a major focus, and that's why the objective has been clear from the beginning for all of our work. And that objective is to wrestle with the risks, to manage and mitigate the risks, so that we can seize the great opportunities that AI provides. And that's what's behind all the work that we're doing in the White House.
And so we've seen a flurry of activity from the White House on AI, certainly the pledges from companies. And I wanted to ask you, we've seen this voluntary effort, but is that enough? What do we need in terms of executive action at this stage?
Yeah, of course it's not enough. And again, look, let's start by understanding this is a very powerful technology. It's very broad. It's moving really rapidly. And in a moment like this, everyone needs to step up and meet their responsibilities and their obligations. Part of the work that we did started in May when we invited 4 CEOs of leading AI companies to come to the White House. The vice president had an extended meeting with them. The president dropped by for a brief chat as well. And the focus of that meeting, the vice president said it about as clearly as you can possibly say it. She said to them, you have not just a legal but a moral responsibility to make sure that your products are safe before they go out in the world. And that May meeting was the beginning of a series of activities that led to now a total of 15 companies signing up with voluntary commitments that are things like agreeing that they're going to test their products and subject them to independent red teaming before they release them out into the world. They've signed up to help work on watermarking and the technologies that you need to make sure that people can distinguish whether content that they're looking at is generated by AI. And these are important steps. They don't fully solve the problem, but that's companies stepping up to their responsibilities. We're continuing to work with Congress on a bipartisan basis, as you heard from the majority leader earlier today. We're working with our international allies and partners. But while we're doing all of that, we also know the executive branch needs to step up to our responsibilities. And some of that has started with companies, with different agencies and departments doing, just in the course of their work, they're making some important strides. There have been a whole series of announcements about that. And then starting a few months ago, the White House said, and most recently the president said that he would be signing an executive order. He said he's committed publicly to signing it this fall. And that is, the whole point of that is to take a broad look across government and really figure out what are all the actions that we can take to meet this AI moment, to get AI right under existing law. And that's the kind of work that's underway today.
And on that point, one of the areas that I know is top of concern for you and the White House is AI talent. What do you view as some of the biggest barriers to AI talent coming to the United States today? And what steps can the White House take to address that?
Yeah, I think this is layers and layers. So number one, if we're going to do what we need to do as a country to get AI right, we need kids in school getting the STEM backgrounds that they need to be able to participate in the AI revolution. It's going to be everything from creating new generations of AI to using the technology in intelligent and really responsible ways. So we need our own kids stepping up. We need to make sure the doors open for all the talent that wants to come to America from around the world. And that's to get it in the country. And then the other thing, of course, that we think a lot about is how do we get the talent that we need in public service? And, a decade ago, I was the director at DARPA, and there I was in the Defense Department and trying to hire the smartest people I could get a hold of to come in and run amazing programs there. And it's never easy inside of government because most of these high-tech jobs in particular can't be, we can't compete on directly head-to-head on salary. At DARPA, I was often trying to recruit people who had job offers for substantially more than I could pay them. But I got great people, and the reason was the call to public service and the chance to do something big that really mattered for the country and for the world. And so you'll see us focusing on pushing for that kind of great talent to come into the government as well.
And in addition to that, there's also been a lot of concern about immigration barriers to attracting the best AI talent. What steps can the Biden administration take to address those concerns?
Yeah, I mean, this is an ongoing issue, and it's been true for high-tech workers in general, and now this AI moment comes on top of that. And maybe just to put it in a personal context, I'm the child of immigrants who came here in the early '60s from India, and we have seen wave after wave of people coming from around the world who have helped build everything that this country is able to do. And I think we just need to recognize that something that's good for the world but makes it harder for us is that people have a lot more opportunity around the world today, and that really says we have to step up our game to make sure that we're not just sort of like leaning back and say, sure, show up if you want to. We need to be really clear that we welcome people and make it easier for them to get here.
And in addition to the concerns about talent and keeping America competitive, there's also worries about the safety of some of these AI systems. And from our reporting, I understand that NIST will be taking a leading role in red teaming AI models used by the federal government. Why is NIST the right agency to take on this work?
Yeah, so let's talk about NIST first, and then I want to put the work of safety in a bigger context. NIST is the National Institute of Standards and Technology. It's another organization that I once got to run. That was way back in the Clinton administration when my hair was still black. But their mission is unchanged over 100 years now, which is to provide the measurement standards, the technical foundation, the infrastructure that we need for everything across our economy. And what that means in information technology and in areas like AI is standards, practices, test beds, standard methodologies. They provide a technical foundation and benchmarks, but they work very closely with the private activities that set standards as the developers and companies and universities come together. So that's happened across every industry you could think of in our economy, and they are starting now to build out their capacity to do that for the things that are building on AI. And that's work that they are stepping up to. They put out a risk management framework in the last many months. That's one important, that's just table stakes to be serious about AI, and there's much more work to do ahead. And so then the question is, well, what is it we're testing and trying to figure out what AI is good for? And I think I really want to come back to the breadth of this technology. So, step back and think about this for a minute. What AI is, we've all seen the generative AI, the chatbots, the image generators. That's one part of this AI revolution that we're in. What AI is, this generation is about computing capabilities that people train on data. And then once they've trained it on data, they use it to make statistical estimates of all sorts. That's how your chatbot works. It's how, it's what's behind self-driving cars. It's every interaction you have in the online environment, every ad that gets served up to you. So that's what's going on. And if you think about it, we created this information age, the number of different kinds of data to train AI systems on. It seems like it's boundless. It's every click you do online. It's sensor data, scientific data, administrative data, financial data. It's language, it's images, it's video. So what that means is that this is an extraordinarily broad technology, and every one of its applications has bright sides and dark sides, and every one of its applications, you have to peel back the layers and figure out, is this technology safe? Is it going to come off the rails? Is it trustworthy? Is it going to do the things that I really need it to do and stay within guardrails? And is it effective? Is it actually going to be accurate? Is it going to give me, the results that I really need to do my work? That's the work that has to be done. And it's easy to say we need to know that AI is safe and trustworthy and effective before we use it. All of our ambitions for getting this right are founded on the idea that we're going to know before we use it. And yet we're just barely starting to have the tools and methods to be able to do that. The way I think of it is it's sort of like medicine before we had clinical trials. I could sell you any potion I liked, and I don't know, it could be good for you, it could be a disaster. And clinical trials are not perfect, but they allowed us to reap the benefit of pharmaceuticals. And that's where we need to get to with the tools and methods for safe and trustworthy and effective AI. NIST is going to have a huge role to play along with the industry and the research community.
And on that point about tools and methods and NIST's role, does the agency currently have the personnel and funding that it needs to be able to take on some of the world's most powerful AI models?
Yeah, this is a question for everything that we and every other, every company is asking that question. Universities are asking that question, and across government we're asking that question. And I think the answer is we're all going to be building. And I know from my experience at NIST that, first of all, they start with a cadre of really deep, smart, technical people. And one of their great gifts is that NIST has, a long tradition of over 100 years of working very closely outside of its own walls. It's not, just looking inside their own four walls. That means working with companies across industries and working with the academic community. And so that's how they will start, but they and many others are going to be doing a lot of work to build the capacity that we need.
And on that point of capacity, Senator Schumer was here earlier today, and he talked about how there are limits to what can be done by executive action and how there's a need for congressional activity here as well. What do you think Congress's priorities should be as they try to grapple with the threat of artificial intelligence?
Yeah. We've had a great conversation on a bipartisan basis with Congress. And of course, the majority leader is completely correct. We are going to make really significant progress with the work that we're doing from the executive branch. No question about that. And no question that much more will be needed. And I've just had such a good set of discussions with people on Capitol Hill over the course of these months, basically since early this calendar year, when all of a sudden everyone was seeing chatbots. It really sparked the right kinds of conversations. And just as an example, I got to participate in the majority leader's session that he hosted on national security, part of his learning series. And that was a classified discussion, no mics, no cameras, and over half the Senate in a room, really focused on what are the hard issues here. And the quality of the questions and the quality of the thinking, I think, I felt really good about. But again, the breadth of the technology, the number of tasks to manage the risks, the number of tasks to figure out how to use it. The market's going to find all kinds of great ways to use it for all kinds of purposes. But in government, we need to be grabbing this amazingly powerful technology and finding really responsible ways to use it to do the country's work. We talked, of course, about the military and the intelligence community's use of it. My colleagues at that session talked about that. But there's so much more, because if you think about every single way that the government interacts with citizens to provide services, those are places where AI is going to make the potential to make that work far better is there. If you think about vitally important services like weather forecasting and predicting where extreme weather is going to happen as climate continues to change, that is something that is it's breathtakingly hard, and we're not able to do it with enough fidelity to really inform personal decisions that are so essential. That's a problem that AI is going to help us fundamentally change. And if you think about the therapies that we need, the way we want to address public health to change health outcomes, I could give you an endless list of the things that we need AI for. So there's a lot of work to do, sorting out those priorities and then figuring out how to resource government to be able to step up. I think those are the conversations that I hear when I talk to people on Capitol Hill, and I think there's a lot of work to be done, and I'm really glad to see the level of engagement and interest.
And on that point, Director Prabhakar, I wanted to ask you about the threat from China. Certainly, there's been a lot of attention on this, and I was curious, do you think we are currently in a digital Cold War with China?
That's a great question. Well, look, we live in a time in which geopolitical tensions with China have ratcheted up, and the China that the world sees today is not the China of 10 or 15 years ago, due to a series of actions that they've taken. And I think we just have to be very realistic that there will always be global problems like climate change that we must work with China on, and at the same time, we are competing economically, and we are working very hard to deter and make sure that we can defeat military action, which we hope never comes to pass. So that is the reality that we're in. And I think for AI, it really comes back to the fact that this powerful, broad technology is everyone around the world is grabbing it to use it to build the future that they think expresses their values, right? I mean, who wouldn't be doing that? It's such a powerful capability. And that's going to look different in authoritarian regimes. And we have so many disagreements in this country about so many things. The one thing everyone agrees on is we do not want to live in that future that is shaped by technologies that have been driven by authoritarian regimes. And I think that to me is the fundamental reason that American leadership, if we are going to lead in the world, as we must lead in AI. That's part of this moment. That's really what underpins everything that we're doing. And that means we have to get it right for the American people, and we have to continue to work with our allies and partners because we want to get it right for the world.
On that point about America leading on AI, China already has rules for generative AI systems. The European Union is getting close to legislation governing AI. Next week, the UK is hosting its major AI summit. Yeah. Are we falling behind these other countries?
Yeah, I don't think we're falling behind. And in fact, I think we are working closely with our like-minded allies. The Vice President just announced that she's participating in that AI summit in the UK as an example. There are a host of other dialogues that are going on, including a G7 dialogue, work that Secretary Raimondo is doing with the US-EU Trade and Technology Council. So all of those conversations are going on. And I think the challenge that we are all facing together is with this very fast-moving, very broad technology, how do we get this right? How do we shape the way regulations are enacted and enforced? How do we build the capacity to test and to know what these AI technologies are actually doing? How do we seize it to use it for all of the benefits that can come? And how do you do that? You're riding this bucking bronco with this technology. And I think that's the challenge. And I think the course that we are on, the president was clear from the beginning, starting early this year, that we were going to move with urgency to get it right. And if you look at the series of actions that we've taken, working with the companies on voluntary commitments, the actions that a lot of our agencies and departments have already mentioned, the EO that the president has said he's going to sign this fall. And then in parallel with that, we also had announced previously that the Office of Management and Budget is putting out guidance for how the government uses AI. And that is a very big deal, because getting that right is a tremendous opportunity for leadership. So when you look at that slate, followed by legislation, we hope close behind, I think we are really in a very strong position.
Do you have an update on when we can expect that guidance from OMB on how the government uses technology?
That's been working in parallel with the EO, and I expect that too will be soon. That'll be good.
Got it. And I wanted to ask you, because you brought up the UK AI Summit, and we were just talking about the tensions of both competing with China and how there are areas where the US needs to work with China, like on climate. Do you agree with the UK's decision to invite China to their AI summit next week?
I thought it was a great process that they went through to figure out how to convene the right people at the right table. And look, absolutely, we always want to make sure that there's good dialogue going on with every part of the world. And so I thought that was a terrific idea, and I think that we'll all see how those conversations play out.
And on that point of the AI summit, the UK has signaled that they're going to focus heavily on so-called existential threats from artificial intelligence. Do you think that that is the right place to focus at this one-time gathering of global leaders and companies?
Well, I think they've been very clear that they've chosen that out of a whole plethora of issues that are important for AI. But I think we should talk about this because, look, I mean, everyone who's involved with AI, if you are in a company, if you're an academic researcher, if you are part of a civil society organization, people tend to come at it from one particular perspective. And that's actually the richness of this technology. But what that means is that it sometimes sounds like a cacophony of people saying, no, this is, the issue is bioweapons, or over here someone saying, no, the issue is this kind of bias that's embedded in algorithms, and someone else is saying, no, it's our information environment is getting trashed by misinformation. So, and other people are concerned about jobs. Every one of those concerns is real. Some are going to manifest early, some are going to manifest later. Some of them can lead to abrupt and massive crises and on a short time frame. Others are going to play out over months or even years, but can also be equally devastating. And I think it's so important that people focus on the things that they are passionate about. But for the work that we're doing from the White House, we are the United States of America. We don't just work on one problem at a time. If we're going to get AI right for our country and for the world, we have to keep all of those risks and challenges in frame. And that is exactly what we have done from the beginning, and you'll see that continue in our work.
But obviously, as much as you can keep all of those in frame, you have to set priorities too. I mean, do you think that there has been too much focus on some of these existential risks? Is it distracting at all from the problems already with artificial intelligence?
No, I really just don't see it as a competition. The things that you need to do to deal with bias and algorithms for mortgage lending decisions, there are a set of things to do, and there are people who have responsibilities in that area. Often there are laws and regulations that are already on the books, and figuring out how to step up to a moment where AI could be exacerbating those risks or making it harder to find those instances of bias. That's something you go do over here. Biorisks are real, and by the way, they were real even before this generation of AI came along, simply because of the advances in biological technologies. And figuring out what to do about that requires taking a systems view of that problem and understanding the biological tools as well as the AI tools, and then figuring out how you minimize our risk and our exposure. So I think I find when you really look at what the specific problems are, the levers that are available and the ways to proceed are really quite different, and they all need to be addressed because, AI simply won't work if we don't manage all of it, and we're capable of doing that.
And so looking at those problems, I wanted to ask you, what keeps you up at night as someone who has been working on this technology for years? What are you most concerned about?
I do lie awake at nights sometimes thinking about it, because I think probably the biggest reason I worry is because of we keep talking about the technology, right? This is really about human beings. It's human beings that build these systems. It's human beings that decide what to train them on. It's human beings that decide what to let them connect to in the rest of the world, or what kind of autonomous functions they might have. It's human beings that choose how to use AI systems. And if you think the machines are complex and opaque and hard to understand, think about the human beings for a minute. And the creativity and the ability for humans to do amazing things, shocking things, terrific things and horrible things, that's what keeps me up at nights. But I'll tell you, I do, so it is on my mind, but I wake up optimistic because I think we are going to make such significant progress with this very focused work that we're doing. And the president's just been clear, we have to get this right. And what you'll see as we do the actions that have already taken place, the EO, the OMB guidance, all of which is to come, with all of that in place, I think you will really see a broad, cohesive, comprehensive approach to getting AI right. And that's a good reason. That's a good feeling in the morning when I wake up. So.
Well, Director, we're just about out of time, so I think we'll have to leave it there on that happy note. Thank you so much for joining us today at First Live.
Thank you, Kat. Really appreciate it.